My mother screamed at me to leave her house and never return, convinced she was the one in control. She forgot I held the keys to the secret credit line funding her entire existence. I closed it immediately. By sunrise, her assets were frozen, and she was panicked. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The fever was still thrumming beneath my skin, a low-grade hum that made my joints ache and my vision swim at the edges. I shouldn't have been driving. My doctor had been explicit about bed rest, about keeping my stress levels low, about allowing my body to recover from the pneumonia that had nearly hospitalized me a week prior. But when you receive a notification that your credit score has dropped 40 points in a single afternoon, medical advice tends to become background noise. I pulled my modest sedan into the driveway of the house I had grown up in. It was a sprawling, immaculate colonial that looked less like a home and more like a spread in a catalog. The lawn was manicured to a terrified perfection, not a blade of grass daring to grow out of sync with its neighbors. It was a stark contrast to how I felt, messy, frayed, and barely holding together. I sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. My hands were shaking, and I told myself it was just the residual weakness from the illness. But deep down, I knew it was the dread. It was the specific, heavy dread that only a daughter of Linda knows. I walked up the slate path, my breathing shallow. I didn't knock. I still had a key, though I rarely used it. As I stepped into the foyer, the smell of lavender and expensive polish hit me, a scent that was designed to be welcoming but always made my stomach turn. "Linda," I called out. We hadn't used "Mom" in years. She said it made her feel old, and honestly, the title implied a nurturing warmth she had never possessed. "In the sunroom, Abigail, try not to track mud." Her voice floated out, light and airy, utterly unconcerned. I walked into the sunroom. It was bathed in golden afternoon light. Linda was lounging on a chaise, a glass of iced tea sweating on the marble side table next to her. She looked perfect, of course. Her hair was a helmet of blonde highlights, her linen pants were crisp, and her face was a mask of carefully applied agelessness. She didn't look up from her iPad. "You look terrible," she said, scrolling through something. "Are you still dragging that cold around? It's been weeks. Honestly, Abigail, you need to take better care of yourself. It's unseemly to look so sickly." "It was pneumonia, Linda," I said, my voice rasping. I leaned against the doorframe because my legs felt like lead. "And I'm here because I got an alert." She finally looked up, her eyebrows arching in a perfect semicircle. "An alert for what?" "A sale on sensible shoes." "For the HELOC," I said, cutting through her mockery. "The home equity line of credit. The one we opened 5 years ago when Dad died. The one you said you closed 3 years ago." Linda's expression didn't flicker. It was a master class in indifference. She took a sip of her tea, the ice clinking softly in the silence. "Oh, that. Don't be dramatic. I had to reopen it for a few minor expenses. Cash flow issues. You know how the market is." "Minor expenses?" I pulled my phone out, my thumb trembling as I opened the banking app. "Linda, there is a balance of $85,000 on this account. It's maxed out. And because my name is still on it as the primary guarantor, my credit just tanked. I'm trying to refinance my apartment next month. You knew this." She waved a hand dismissively, as if swatting away a gnat. 8590? "It's all numbers, Abigail. I'm handling it. Ray needed a new car. His old one was an embarrassment to the family image, and I needed to update the staging inventory for the business. You can't expect me to work with last season's decor." I felt the room spin. "You bought Ray a car, with a credit line attached to my social security number, without asking me." "He's your brother," she snapped, her voice hardening. The airy facade dropped, revealing the steel beneath. "And I didn't ask because I knew you'd be petty about it. You're always so miserly, just like your father was, hoarding every penny while your family struggles to maintain a decent standard of living." "Struggles?" I gestured around the room, at the silk curtains, the marble floors, the diamond tennis bracelet catching the light on her wrist. You live in a palace, Linda. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. I've been sick, I missed work, and you've been draining my credit behind my back. I took a step forward. I want it paid off, now, or I'm calling the bank. Linda stood up then. She wasn't a tall woman, but she knew how to. Oh, project authority. She walked over to me, invading my personal space, smelling of lavender and disdain. She looked me up and down, sneering at my pale face and my trembling hands. You will do no such thing, she hissed. You are ungrateful. I raised you. I put a roof over your head. And this is how you repay me, by coming into my house, infecting the air with your sickness and demanding money. It's my credit, I shouted, the energy draining out of me with every word. It is my family, she yelled back. And if you're going to be this toxic, this selfish, then I don't want you here. Get out. I stared at her. What? You heard me, she said, her voice turning cold and final. Get out of my house. Go back to your sad little apartment and your sad little life. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize for disrespecting me. I'm done with your attitude. If I leave, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow, I'm done, Linda, I mean it. She laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. Oh, please, you'll be back. You always come back because you have nowhere else to go. Now, leave, before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. The betrayal hit me harder than the diagnosis itself. It wasn't just the money. It was the absolute, unwavering confidence she had that I was weak. She believed she owned me. She believed that no matter what she stole from me, I would just take it. I turned around and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it softly. The walk back to the car felt like a marathon. The adrenaline that had sustained me during the argument evaporated the moment the front door clicked shut, leaving me hollowed out and shivering. I sat in the driver's seat of my sedan, the leather burning hot against my back, but I couldn't stop shaking. I started the engine, but I didn't put it in gear. I just sat there, staring at the house. From the outside, it was the picture of American stability. The white pillars, the perfectly trimmed hydrangeas, the weeping willow swaying gently in the front yard. It was a lie. A beautiful, expensive shell rotting from the inside out. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at it, a text from Ray. Mom says you freaked out on her. Nice going, Abby. She's stressing out now. We have the gala next week. She doesn't need your drama. Grow up. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My thumbs hovered over the screen, but the words wouldn't come. Grow up. I was the one paying for his new car. I was the one whose credit score was being used as a majestic carpet for them to walk all over. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway, forcing myself to focus on the road. The tears didn't come immediately. They waited until I was 3 miles down the highway, safely away from her territory. Then, they came in hot, angry waves that blurred the road ahead. I had to pull over into a gas station parking lot to wipe my face with a rough paper napkin from the glove box. It wasn't just sadness. It was humiliation. I was a 32-year-old woman, a professional, a specialist in my field. I spent my days analyzing complex financial structures, tracing hidden assets, and uncovering fraud for high-profile divorce cases and corporate litigation. I was the person people hired when they suspected they were being lied to. And yet, in my own life, I had been the mark. I had been the clueless victim. I looked at the banking app again. The balance stared back at me, $84,942.18. Available credit, $58.82. She had taken it all. Every cent of the equity line I had co-signed to help her bridge the gap when Dad's life insurance was delayed 5 years ago. She was supposed to have removed my name from the title and the loan 3 years ago. I had signed the paperwork she sent me. I had trusted her. Wait. I frowned, wiping the last tear from my cheek. I had signed paperwork. I remembered it distinctly. Linda had sent over a notary, a friend of hers from the country club, to my office. I had signed the release of liability. So why was the bank alerting me? I tapped deeper into the app, navigating through the statements. I pulled up the Account Details tab. Primary borrower, Abigail J. redacted, secondary borrower, Linda M. redacted. My heart hammered against my ribs. She hadn't removed me. She had never filed the papers. Or worse, she had filed them but kept the account open under my name without removing me, perhaps using the release papers for something else entirely. I sat there in the gas station lot, the smell of gasoline and exhaust fumes wafting through the vents, and I felt a shift. The sadness began to calcify into something colder, harder. Linda had told me to leave. She had told me not to come back. She had treated me like a rebellious teenager who needed a timeout, secure in the knowledge that she held the purse strings of emotional approval. She thought she had one because she had the house, the car, and tea money. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. My finger hovered over the account management button on the screen. Because I was the primary borrower, not just a cosigner, but the primary, a distinction I hadn't realized the importance of until this exact second. I had administrative privileges that she didn't. I could see the payment history. I could see the withdrawal locations. And most importantly, I had the power to initiate a security freeze due to suspected compromise. Linda thought the conversation was over. She thought she had dismissed me. She didn't realize that by keeping my name on the account to exploit my credit, she had also given me the kill switch. I didn't press the button yet. I needed to be sure. I needed to be back in my apartment, on my secure Wi-Fi, with my laptop open. I needed to look at this with the eyes of a forensic accountant, not a hurt daughter. I put the car in drive and pulled back onto the highway. The tears were gone. My hands were steady on the wheel. To understand why I didn't press that button immediately, you have to understand who Linda is. And more importantly, you have to understand who I was trained to be. My father was a quiet man. He was an accountant, diligent, and terrified of debt. He died of a sudden heart attack 5 years ago, leaving behind a modest life insurance policy and a house that was fully paid off. Linda, on the other hand, was allergic to modest. Within 6 months of his funeral, Linda had reinvented herself. She wasn't just a widow, she was a survivor. She started a business called Lux Living, offering lifestyle coaching and high-end homes staging for real estate agents. It sounded impressive. In reality, it was a way for her to buy expensive furniture, write it off as a business expense, use it in a house for a week, and then move it into her own living room. I had become a forensic accountant specifically because I hated chaos. I loved the black and white nature of numbers. Numbers don't lie. They don't gaslight you. They don't tell you they love you and then steal from you. If a dollar is missing, there is a reason, a trail, and a culprit. When Dad died, Linda claimed she was drowning in unexpected bills. The funeral, the estate taxes, the maintenance, she had sobbed into her silk handkerchief. I just need a bridge, Abigail, just a line of credit to smooth out the cash flow until the business takes off. Your credit is perfect. Mine is complicated because of your father's old accounts. That was a lie, of course. Dad's accounts were pristine. Linda's spending had been the problem. But I was grieving, and she was my mother. I signed the papers for the home equity line of credit, HELOC, on the house. The deal was simple. She would use it for emergencies, and within 2 years, she would refinance the house in her own name and remove me. I had spent the last 5 years building my own life. I worked 70-hour weeks at a top-tier firm. I lived frugally, saving for a down payment on my own place. I drove a 10-year-old car. I brown-bagged my lunch. I was the boring sister. Then there was Ray. Ray was 26, 4 years younger than me and functionally useless. He was finding himself. He had tried being a DJ, a personal trainer, a crypto influencer, and currently he was a brand ambassador for Linda's company. This apparently involved driving a leased BMW and wearing watches that cost more than my annual health insurance premium. When I finally got back to my apartment that evening, the sun had set. My apartment was small, clean, and quiet. It was my sanctuary. I made a cup of tea, wrapped myself in a heavy blanket to stop the shivering that had returned, and opened my laptop. I logged into the bank portal. The forensic part of my brain took over. I downloaded the last 24 months of statements and exported them into a spreadsheet. I started categorizing the expenses. It was worse than I thought. There were no business expenses. It was a catalog of indulgence. $4,200. The Ritz-Carlton, Maui dates coincided with Ray's Instagram posts about a mental health retreat. $1,800. Saks Fifth Avenue, multiple transactions. $950. A high-end sterile spa, Botox and fillers likely. $12,000. Prestige Automotive, down payment on Ray's car. And then, the kicker, the interest payments. She was making the minimum monthly payments, barely covering the interest, which meant the principal balance wasn't moving. She was treating the equity in the house my father had worked 30 years to pay off, as a bottomless piggy bank. But it wasn't just the theft, it was the recent activity. 3 days ago, while I was lying in bed with a 103-degree fever, unable to answer her calls, she had withdrawn $15,000 in a cashier's check. The memo line on the digital image of the check read, "Venue deposit." She was throwing a party, a gala. Ray's text mentioned it. She was using my credit, my FINA. Ensile future, to throw a party where she would undoubtedly play the role of the wealthy, benevolent matriarch. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest, displacing the illness. I picked up my phone and dialed her number one last time. I needed to give her one chance, just one, because she was my mother. She picked up on the second ring. The background noise was loud, clinking glasses, laughter. She was out. "What is it, Abigail?" she snapped. "I told you I'm done with your moodiness. I'm at dinner with the Davises. Don't embarrass me." "You took $15,000 3 days ago," I said, my voice steady. "What was it for?" "I'm hanging up," she said. "You are obsessed. It's for the fall gala. I'm the chairwoman this year. I have to front the venue costs, but I'll get it back from ticket sales. It's an investment. You wouldn't understand, you have no head for business." "You used my name," I said. "You're ruining me." "Oh, stop it. You're fine. You have that boring job with the steady paycheck. You can absorb the debt-to-income ratio for a few months. Stop being selfish. We'll talk next week. Do not call me again tonight." The line went dead. I looked at the phone, then I looked at my laptop screen. She was right about one thing. I did have a boring job, but she was wrong about my head for business. I knew exactly how business worked. I knew that when a borrower violated the terms of an agreement, the lender had the right to accelerate the debt. And I knew that if I reported the account as compromised by a third party with unauthorized access, the bank's fraud protocol would kick in instantly. I wasn't just going to close the account, I was going to nuke it. I cracked my knuckles, wincing slightly at the ache in my joints, and pulled up the bank's fraud reporting form. Reason for report: unauthorized user exceeded scope of permission. Suspected misappropriation of funds. I typed in the details. Then, I looked at the action requested drop-down menu. I selected freeze all assets and initiate investigation. I hit enter. The next morning, the silence in my apartment was absolute. Usually, the city noise drifted in through the window, sirens, traffic, the distant hum of the train. But today, everything felt suspended in a thick, heavy quiet. I sat at my kitchen island, a fresh cup of coffee steaming in front of me. I hadn't slept well. The guilt had come in waves throughout the night, wrestling with my anger. It is a strange, visceral thing to actively sabotage your own mother, even when it is done in self-defense. I kept imagining her waking up in that pristine, perfectly staged house, unaware that the ground beneath her feet had already been liquidated. At 8:03 a.m., the email arrived. From Fraud Operations Department. Subject: Action required case 4492B security freeze confirmed. Dear Ms. Abigail redacted, per your request filed at 9:45 p.m. EST, a temporary freeze has been placed on the home equity line of credit ending in -8,821. All outgoing transactions have been suspended. All linked cards have been deactivated. An investigative specialist has been assigned to review the unauthorized user claim. I stared at the screen. It was done. The mechanism I used for my clients, the nuclear option for divorcees trying to stop a spouse from draining joint accounts, was now active on my own family. But I couldn't just sit and wait for the fallout. My training wouldn't allow it. In forensic accounting, you don't just find the leak. You find the pipe, the plumber who installed it, and the person who paid for the water. I needed to understand the full scope of Linda's desperation. People don't max out an $85,000 credit line on throw pillows and galas unless there is a much deeper, darker hole they are trying to fill. I opened a new tab and logged into the county clerk's public records database. It cost a small fee to access detailed deed histories, but it was worth it. I pulled up the records for the family home, 24 Maple Drive. My father had paid off the mortgage 5 years before he died. The house should have been free and clear, minus the HELOC we had taken out. I clicked on lien history. The blood drained from my face, leaving me lightheaded. I had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. There wasn't just the HELOC. There was a second lien. A hard money loan, high interest, predatory terms, usually used by house flippers or people with terrible credit who need cash fast. It had been taken out 6 months ago. The amount was for $50,000. Linda had leveraged the house twice. I quickly switched tabs to the Secretary of State's business registry. I looked up Lux Living LLC. Status: active, not in good standing. She hadn't paid her annual franchise taxes in 2 years. I went deeper. I used a skip tracing tool I had access to through my firm, strictly for professional use, but I justified this as protecting my own credit liability. I looked for judgments or liens again. Sent Linda personally. The screen populated with 3 hits. Civil suit. A catering company was suing her for $8,200 in unpaid services from an event 6 months ago. Civil suit. A freelance web designer had a default judgment against her for $2,500. IRS tax lien, this was the big one, filed 4 months ago. Linda wasn't just living beyond her means, she was insolvent. The gala she was throwing next week wasn't a charity event, it was a desperate Hail Mary. She was likely using new debt to pay off old debt, a classic Ponzi-style churn to keep the appearance of wealth alive while the foundation rotted. And the $15,000 she pulled from my HELOC 3 days ago. I went back to the bank statement. I looked at the routing number for the venue deposit. I plugged it into the bank identifier database. It wasn't a commercial bank used by event halls or hotels. It was an online-only neobank, the kind often used for peer-to-peer transfers or crypto exchanges. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with my recovering pneumonia. She hadn't paid a venue. She had moved the cash somewhere untraceable. My phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up. Caller, Linda Holmes. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. 2 seconds later, it rang again. Caller, Linda Sell. I watched the phone vibrate, dancing slightly across the granite countertop. I took a sip of my coffee. The liquid was lukewarm now. Then a text from Ray Bro, Mom's card just got declined at the gas station. She is freaking out. Did you do something? I didn't reply. I turned back to my laptop and opened a fresh document titled, Case File Maple Drive Insolvency. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was the auditor, and the audit was just beginning. The real call came an hour later. I knew she would call. Linda was predictable in her rage. When the initial shock of the declined card wore off, she would assume it was a glitch. Then she would call the bank. The bank would tell her that the account was frozen pending a fraud investigation initiated by the primary borrower. That was the moment I was waiting for. My phone rang again. This time, the ID didn't say Linda. It was a local number I didn't recognize. I picked it up. "This is Abigail." "You spiteful, vicious little girl." Linda's voice was a low tremolo of pure fury. It sounded tinny, like she was on a speakerphone in a car, or perhaps borrowing a phone from a stranger. "Hello, Linda," I said, leaning back in my chair. My heart was hammering, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, but I forced my voice to remain clinical. "I assume you found out about the account's status." "I am standing at the checkout of the Party City in Westlake," she hissed. "I have 2 carts full of decor for the gala. My card was declined." The cashier cut it up in front of me. She said the bank ordered it destroyed. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? There were people in line behind me, Abigail, people I know. "I imagine that was difficult," I said. "But it's not your card, Linda. It's my card. It's my credit line. And since you kicked me out of your house yesterday and told me never to come back, I figured you wouldn't need my financial assistance anymore." "I didn't mean it like that," she shrieked. The facade of the polished socialite cracked completely. "I was parenting you. I was setting boundaries. You don't just shut off a line of credit without warning. I have vendors to pay. I have the caterer coming in 2 hours for a deposit." "You mean the caterer suing you for $8,000? Or a new one?" I asked calmly. There was a silence on the other end. It was heavy and thick. How do you know about that?" "I'm a forensic accountant, Linda. Did you forget?" I swiveled my chair, looking out the window at the gray skyline. "I know about the catering lawsuit. I know about the judgment from the web designer. I know about the tax lien. And I know about the $50,000 hard money loan you took out against the house 6 months ago." "That's private business," she sputtered. "You have no right snooping in my affairs." "You made your affairs my business when you used my social security number to fund them," I countered, my voice hardening. "You have been insolvent for 2 years. You've been using the HELOC, my liability, to pay the interest on your other debts. It's a shell game, Linda, and I just turned the table over." "You have to undo it," she demanded, her voice shifting from anger to panic. "Abigail, listen to me. If you don't unfreeze that account right now, the checks I wrote yesterday will bounce. The gala will be canceled. My reputation will be destroyed. I will be the laughingstock of the entire county." "You should have thought about that before you told me my pneumonia was an inconvenience to your aesthetic," I said. "I am your mother," she screamed. The audio clipped. She was holding the phone too close to her mouth. "I gave you life. You owe me this. You are ungrateful, selfish, and cold. Just like your father. He never wanted me to be happy either. He always wanted to count pennies while I tried to build a life." "Dad left you a paid-off house and a pension," I said, feeling a surge of protective anger for the man who couldn't defend himself. "You burned through it in 5 years. That's not building a life. That's arson." "I am at a stranger's mercy right now," she sobbed, switching tactics to martyrdom. "I am borrowing this phone from a kind woman in the parking lot because my service was cut off this morning. It was auto-paid from that account. I am stranded. Do you want your mother stranded in a parking lot?" "You have a leased BMW," I reminded her. "Drive home, and Linda." "What?" she sniffled. "Don't try to access the account again. I've flagged the entire activity log as fraudulent. If you try to call the bank and impersonate me to lift the freeze, they will arrest you." I didn't just close it. I reported criminal activity. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "You wouldn't put your own mother in jail." "That depends entirely on you," I said. "Don't come to my apartment, don't send Ray, and stop spending money you don't have." I hung up. My hand was shaking as I lowered the phone. I felt nauseous. It wasn't a triumph. It felt like cutting off a limb to save the body. It was necessary, but it hurt like hell. I looked at the phone. The stranger's number was still on the screen. I silently thanked the unknown woman who had lent her phone to a monster, unaware of the war she had just facilitated. Then I went back to the spreadsheet, because there was still one loose thread I hadn't pulled yet: the $15,000 transfer to the neobank. I needed to know where that money went. The retaliation didn't take long. Linda wasn't smart enough to fight me on the numbers, so she sent in her brute force. 3 hours after the phone call, my buzzer rang. I checked the monitor. It was Ray. He looked disheveled. His brand ambassador look usually involved carefully gelled hair and designer streetwear, but today he looked frantic. He was pacing back and forth in the lobby of my building, hammering the call button repeatedly. I debated ignoring him, but Ray was persistent, and he had a key to the building's front door because I had given him 1 year ago for emergencies. If I didn't let him up, he'd likely wait by the door until a neighbor exited and slip in, then pound on my apartment door until the police were called. I buzzed him in. I left my apartment door unlocked and went back to the kitchen island, standing so the granite barrier was between us. It was a defensive posture. Ray burst in a moment later. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted before he even closed the door. He stormed into the living room, throwing his hands up. "Mom is a wreck. She's at home crying her eyes out. She said you accused her of fraud. She said you're trying to have her arrested. Are you insane?" "I'm protecting myself, Ray," I said calmly. "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down." He kicked the ottoman of my sofa. "You cut off the money. Do you know what you did? They came and towed the car an hour ago. The lease payment bounced, and apparently she was 3 months behind already, so the repo guys were just waiting for a reason. I looked like an idiot. My neighbors saw my car getting hooked." "It wasn't your car," I corrected him. "It was the bank's car, and Mom was paying for it with my credit." "Who cares?" Ray yelled. "We're family. That money was there for us. You have a good job, you have savings. Why do you have to be such a bitch about it?" $85,000, Ray, I said. "That's not helping out. That's theft." He scoffed, pacing around my small living room, looking at my modest furniture with disdain. "You're just jealous. You always have been. You're jealous that Mom and I actually know how to enjoy life while you sit here in your little cave looking at spreadsheets. Mom has a vision. Lux Living is going to blow up. We just needed a little more runway." "Lux Living is a corpse," I said bluntly. "I pulled the records. She has 0 revenue. She has liens. She's broke, Ray, and so are you apparently, since you're living off her living off me." "Shut up," he pointed a finger at me. "You don't know anything. Mom has a plan. She has a big investor coming in next week after the gala. That's what the deposit was for, to secure the venue so the investor sees the potential." I froze. "The deposit?" "Yes, the 15 grand, Ray said, realizing he might have said too much but too angry to stop. "She needed that cash to lock down the thing, the deal, and you froze it. Now the investor is going to walk." I looked at him, really looked at him. He was sweating. His eyes were darting around the room. He wasn't just angry on Linda's behalf. He was terrified for himself. "Ray," I said slowly, turning my laptop screen around so it aced him. "I traced the $15,000. So," he crossed his arms, but his posture shrank. "It didn't go to a venue. It went to a neobank account. Specifically, an account at Varo Money." "So what? Maybe that's who the venue uses." "I subpoenaed the account details an hour ago through a contact at the fraud exchange," I lied. "I hadn't subpoenaed it. That would take a court order. But I had cross-referenced the account masking data with previous transfers I'd seen on Ray's own Venmo history, which I had access to from a shared phone plan years ago. The account is in your name, Ray." The color drained from his face, so fast it looked like a physical wipe. "She didn't send the money to a venue," I continued, watching the realization crush him. "She sent it to you. Why did you need $15,000 in cash, Ray? Is it the crypto trading, or is it the sports betting sites I see linked to your email?" He stammered. He took a step back. I was going to invest it for her. I have a system. I was going to double it so she could pay off the hard money loan." You were gambling with the last of the equity in our childhood home, I said, my voice quiet and cold. And she let you. She stole from me to let you play roulette. I was helping, Ray shouted, his voice cracking. I was trying to save the house. You weren't doing anything, you just left us. I'm giving you a choice, I said. You can walk out that door right now and figure out your own life. Or, when the police eventually get involved, and they will, because the bank takes mortgage fraud very seriously, I can hand them this file that shows you as the primary beneficiary of the stolen funds. Ray looked at the door. Then he looked at me. There was no brotherly love in his eyes, just fear and the resentment of a parasite being detached from its host. You're ruining everything, he whispered. No, I said, I'm just turning on the lights. He turned and fled. I heard the front door slam, vibrating the walls. I sat back down. I felt exhausted, my chest aching from the stress and the lingering illness. But I couldn't stop yet. Ray had confirmed something crucial. There was an investor. Or at least, Linda believed there was. If she was desperate enough to pin her hopes on a big investor, she would try something drastic to keep the gala alive. She wouldn't cancel it. Her ego wouldn't allow it. I checked the bank alerts. Attempted transaction, $5,000 declined. Attempted transaction, $2,500 declined. She was trying to run the card manually now, probably entering numbers online. Then I saw a new notification from a different institution. My email pinged. Credit alert, new inquiry. Lender, quick cash title loans. She was trying to pawn something, but she didn't have the car anymore. I realized with a jolt what she was going to do. The gala was scheduled for this Saturday. She needed money immediately. There was only one asset left that she had access to, something she couldn't legally sell, but might try to anyway. Grandma's jewelry collection. It was supposed to be in a safety deposit box that we were co-signers on, meant to be split between me and Ray upon her death. The value was substantial, easily $50,000 in vintage diamonds and gold. I grabbed my purse and my car keys. I didn't care about the fever. I had to get to the bank before she did. I made it to the bank in record time, my tires screeching slightly as I pulled into the lot. The branch was a stately brick building, one of the few places in town that still felt permanent and unshakable. Inside, however, the atmosphere was anything but stable. As I pushed through the heavy glass revolving doors, I could hear her. Linda wasn't screaming. Screaming would have been too plebeian for her. She was projecting. It was that sharp, theatrical voice she reserved for customer service representatives she deemed beneath her station. I am a gold tier member, she was saying, her hands slamming onto the mahogany counter. I have banked here for 30 years. My husband built this town's accounting infrastructure, and you are telling me I cannot access my box because of a missing key. I walked onto the floor. The bank manager, Mr. Henderson, looked up. He was a kind man with thinning hair who had known my father well. When he saw me, the relief that washed over his face was palpable. Mrs. Last name, Mr. Henderson said, his voice straining for calm. As I've explained, the safety deposit box is a joint lease requiring 2 keys or 2 signatures for access, specifically because it is part of the unresolved estate trust. The protocol. To hell with the protocol, Linda snapped. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, likely to hide the puffiness of her eyes, and a trench coat that looked like she had thrown it over pajamas. I need those documents now. It is a medical emergency. It's not a medical emergency, Linda, I said, my voice cut in. G through the lobby's hush. Linda spun around. For a second, she looked like a cornered animal. Her lipstick was slightly smeared, and her hair, usually a helmet of perfection, was fraying at the nape of her neck. You, she breathed, give me the key, give it to me right now. I stopped 5 feet from her. I didn't look at her. I looked at Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, I am the executor of the trust that holds the lease on Box 404. I am invoking the clause regarding adverse claims. I believe the co-lessee intends to liquidate the contents in violation of the trust's terms. I would like the box sealed pending a probate court order. The silence in the bank was absolute. Even the tellers stopped typing. Linda's mouth opened and closed. Liquidate? I was just going to check on the appraisals. You were going to pawn Grandma's emeralds to pay for a party, I said, my voice flat and carrying to the back of the room. Just like you tried to pawn the car title this morning. Just like you drained the equity line. You are a liar, Linda shrieked, abandoning her dignity entirely. She lunged toward me, grabbing my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong, fueled by panic. Give me the key, Abigail. You are ruining me. The gala is in 2 days. I have people coming, important people. If I don't have the money for the caterers, they won't set up. I pulled my arm away, shaking her off. Then cancel it. I can't, she wailed, and suddenly she was sobbing, ugly, heaving sobs that echoed off the marble floors. Mr. Sterling is coming, the investor. If he sees the gala, he'll invest in Lux Living and I can pay it all back. I just need one more day, Abby, please. It was pathetic. It was the desperate logic of a gambler doubling down on a losing hand. She genuinely believed that if she could just fake being rich for one more night, she would become rich. Mr. Henderson, I said, turning my back on her, seal the box, please. Mr. Henderson nodded solemnly. It's done, Abigail. I walked out. Linda didn't follow me. She collapsed into one of the waiting area chairs, weeping into her hands as the security guard awkwardly offered her a tissue. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought the shame of the bank incident would force her to fold. I was wrong. Saturday arrived. I hadn't heard from Linda or Ray in 48 hours, but I saw the social media posts. Ray was posting frantically. The event of the season is on, location change, an intimate gathering at the estate, exclusive access. Lux Living goes back to its roots. She hadn't canceled. Since she couldn't pay the venue, she moved the gala to the house that was currently pending foreclosure investigation, the house with no equity left. She was going to host high-net-worth individuals in a home she was actively losing to solicit money she would inevitably steal. I couldn't let it happen. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about liability. If she took money from an investor while under a fraud investigation that I initiated, I could be deposed as a witness or even an accomplice if I didn't disclose what I knew. I put on a black dress. I applied my makeup carefully to hide the lingering circles under my eyes, and I drove to the house. The driveway was packed. Valets, likely Ray's friends, were parking cars on the lawn, tearing up the grass. Music was thumping from the backyard. I walked through the front door. The house was staged beautifully, I had to give her that. But I knew the truth. The flowers were likely stolen from a neighbor's garden or bought on credit she didn't have. The champagne was probably cheap, sparkling wine poured into expensive decanters. I found them in the backyard. A tent had been set up. There were maybe 30 people there, a far cry from the hundreds she had promised, but enough to make a scene. Linda was in the center of the patio, holding court. She wore a silver gown that I recognized from her closet. It was 10 years old. She was laughing, clutching the arm of a silver-haired man in a bespoke suit. That had to be Mr. Sterling, the mark. I took a deep breath. My heart was racing, but my mind was ice cold. I walked through the crowd. People murmured as I passed. They knew me as the quiet daughter, the one in the background. They weren't used to seeing me walk with the stride of an executioner. Linda, I said. The music seemed to dip. Linda froze. She turned slowly, her smile faltering. When she saw me, her eyes widened in terror. Abigail, she chirped, her voice high and brittle. We didn't expect you. You've been so ill. I'm feeling much better, I said. I looked at the man on her arm. You must be Mr. Sterling. I am, he said, smiling charmingly. And you are the daughter? Your mother has been telling me about her vision for the expansion. We were just discussing the capital injection. She doesn't have a vision, Mr. Sterling, I said clearly, and she doesn't. To have a business. Abigail, Ray appeared from the crowd, trying to grab my elbow. Get out of here, you're drunk. I'm stone sober, Ray, I said, sidestepping him. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I held it out to Mr. Sterling. This is a copy of the lien history on this property, I said, my voice steady, carrying over the low hum of the party. It also contains the filing number for the active fraud investigation regarding Lux Living LLC and the default judgments from her previous vendors. My mother is currently insolvent. This house is leveraged to 110% of its value. Any money you give her tonight will not go to a business expansion. It will go to pay the interest on a hard money loan to keep the lights on for another month. The silence that descended on the backyard was suffocating. The music stopped, someone had hit pause. Mr. Sterling looked at the envelope, then he looked at Linda. Linda's face was a mask of crumbling plaster. She's lying, she whispered, but the conviction was gone. She's mentally unstable. She's been sick. She's jealous of my success. Mr. Sterling took the envelope. He opened it. He scanned the first page, the deed record showing the multiple liens. He scanned the second page, the tax lien. He closed the envelope. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. He gently removed Linda's hand from his arm. I think I've seen enough, he said quietly. No, Linda grabbed at him. It's a mistake. It's a clerical error. I can explain. Don't touch me, Mr. Sterling said, his voice sharpening. He looked at me and nodded once, a gesture of respect from one professional to another. Then he turned and walked toward the driveway. The dam broke. The other guests, sensing the disaster, began to mutter and move toward the exits. The illusion had shattered. Linda stood alone in the center of the patio, the silver gown looking suddenly like a costume. She looked at the retreating guests, then she looked at me. Her face contorted into a snarl of pure hatred. You, she screamed, pointing a trembling finger. You traitor, you ungrateful, miserable wretch. I hope you die alone. I have no daughter. You haven't had a daughter for a long time, Linda, I said softly. You just had a line of credit. I turned around and walked back through the house. As I reached the front door, I saw Ray sitting on the stairs, his head in his hands. He didn't look up. I walked out into the cool night air. The valet stand was empty. I got into my car, backed out of the driveway, and drove away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. The fallout was swift and absolute. Without the capital injection from Mr. Sterling, the house of cards collapsed within 48 hours. The hard money lender, realizing the property was over-leveraged and the primary borrower was being investigated for bank fraud, moved to foreclose immediately. Because I had reported the fraud on the HELOC, the bank's investigation concluded that Linda had indeed misappropriated the funds. However, because I was a co-borrower who had allowed access for years, the debt was still technically tied to me. But I had a plan for that. I used my savings, the money I had been hoarding for a house of my own, to negotiate a settlement. I paid off a portion of the principal in exchange for the bank releasing me from the liability and pursuing Linda for the remainder. It wiped out my savings, but it bought my freedom. Linda was evicted 3 months later. It was a small mercy that I wasn't there to see it, though a neighbor told me she was carried out screaming, threatening to sue the sheriff, the bank, and the world. She avoided prison, barely. Her lawyer managed to plead it down to a civil matter regarding the debt, arguing that as a family member, she had implied consent to use the funds initially. But her credit is destroyed. She lives in a small, one-bedroom apartment on the other side of the state, living off her meager Social Security and whatever Ray can give her. And Ray. He hit rock bottom hard. The gambling debts he had hidden from everyone caught up to him. He lost the car. He lost the watches. Last I heard, he was working as a bartender at a chain restaurant, living with 3 roommates. He sent me a text a month ago. I'm sorry. That was it, 2 words. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready to forgive, and honestly, I didn't need to. His apology was for him, not for me. As for me, I'm still a forensic accountant. I still spend my days looking for the truth in the numbers. But the fever is gone. The anxiety that used to live in the pit of my stomach, the dread of the next phone call, the next crisis, it's vanished. I didn't buy a house. I decided to rent a nicer apartment in the city, one with a view of the river. It's quiet there. The furniture is mine. The food in the fridge is mine. And the money in the bank, however much or little there is, belongs to me. Yesterday, I went to the cemetery. I visited Dad's grave for the first time in years. I cleaned the moss off the headstone and left a fresh bouquet of lilies. I fixed it, Dad, I whispered to the cold stone. The dead is gone, we're clear. The wind rustled the trees, a soft, exhaling sound. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a daughter trying to earn approval. I felt like an adult who had earned her peace. I walked back to my car, the sun warm on my face, and drove home.